Hi, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the Energy Storage Roundtable we're having today with Eguana Technologies. I want to introduce Livio Felice, Director of Global Sales at Eguana Technologies, and Courtney Pins, National Account Manager. We'll give a quick introduction of the team here at RENVU, and then jump into our topic. So my name's Nick May, Solar Sales Engineer here at RENVU. With us, we also have Jimmy Saintel and Dean Armentrout, who are in the same roles. And we have Erez Dolev, who's the Managing Director here at RENVU. So I think we'll just go ahead and jump straight into our first topic, which is sort of the market for energy storage. And first question that we had on our end was what markets are most active? Are you seeing mostly residential versus C&I, and maybe how the U.S. compares to other markets around the world in terms of its energy storage adoption and what that outlook looks like?
Absolutely, Nick. So as I mentioned, Eguana operates internationally. I would say the two most exciting markets for this company is the North American market and also the German residential market. The German residential market in 2020 installed around 100,000 energy storage systems. It is projected that in 2021, the market will take about 150,000 pieces. If we compare that to North America, we recently seen the published numbers. In North America in Q1, which was a supply constraint market, the market consumed 15,000 systems. So maybe we'll come in at around 60 to 70% of that of the German market. I would say definitely the bulk of our business, probably about 99% of our business, is in the residential space. We do have a commercial product, but the commercial market has been much slower to gain traction than the residential spot. And then, Nick, I think if we look at the US and the markets that I'm most excited about is obviously California. As you guys know, I mean, we've done some work already in California. We have all new properties need to be built with solar on the rooftop. We have the time of use, which recently came into effect. SCHIP funding is still there. ITC is obviously still there. We have the ongoing power outages, which are impacting consumers up and down the coast. So from a bigger picture, it's definitely California is a hot spot. But as we were just discussing before this, Texas is exciting. Yep. The Southeast, a lot of people are moving down to the Southeast pocket now. A lot of retirees, people working from home. So they're looking for that backup power component. And of course, the Caribbean market is also exciting in the midterm.
Yeah, that's definitely something we've seen on our end in Texas and sort of the Gulf Coast and looking for alternative backup products to sort of your traditional generators like we were talking about, given, you know, all the different dynamics of grid stability and storms coming in. So yeah, that's, I think, something we've seen on our end too.
Absolutely. And the last thing I'll say on that is if we just look at the California market, which is, you know, we hit all the different spots, the use cases are there, the incentives are in place, and most excitingly, there's 1 million existing rooftops in California, right? So when we look at the retrofit market, and I'm pretty confident that anybody who has solar power and is experiencing or potentially will experience a power shutoff is probably thinking, hey, is the solar asset on my rooftop going to provide backup power when this grid goes down? So we just need to focus on the California market and get our product out to those 1 million homeowners who need it.
Another question we get quite a bit is customers are always looking for the next best thing. They're and wanting to know about alternate and next type of battery solutions coming down the pipe. Can you comment on how you see the marketplace today and evolving in terms of competition, more players, and how that affects operations at Eguana?
Yeah, absolutely, Dean. I mean, we're definitely not concerned with competition. In fact, like Nick and I were just saying, this market's set to explode. We need more solutions in the market, and we definitely encourage the investment. But right now, the market is in North America, the market's still relatively small. We're probably going to come in at less than 100,000 units this year. So there hasn't been so many companies coming into the space, as we've seen in the European and Australian market. So I think we still got to give it a couple more years before we see a significant number of new players come in.
Is there a reason? Is there something that's preventing the U.S. from taking off like other parts of the world?
No, I don't think there's any fundamental challenges. It's just it's taking time to develop, right? So we started working in this energy storage. Eguana started working in this space in North America. We completed our first grid-tied lithium battery storage systems on the East Coast in 2013. And I would say now, fast forward 8 years later, we're starting to get material traction in terms of market appetite and market demand for these energy storage systems. So it's just been a market development exercise.
And as those players are joining the market, we see pricing changing along the 2 years that we're participating in this market. How will the price per kilowatt hour change in the next few years, in your opinion? And is there a limit to how low it can go? Is there some hard stop? And I'm comparing it to what happened in the last 12 years in the solar market with solar panels that started at, I don't know, $4 or $5 per watt in 2008, and now we're seeing prices at 30 cents and 40 cents per watt, which is really significant change.
Absolutely. And I think there's a lot of correlation between what we've seen in the solar power market, as you said, like 10 years ago or even longer, that 2008 through 2012 period. There was a lot of focus on the materials going into solar panels and the cost reduction, right? So a lot of focus on the input materials, and that drove down the price of solar equipment. And then after that price settled, the focus was like on power electronics and on balance of system components and how these systems were all going together, and then how the product was flowing to the market. And I would say it's very similar. Like the batteries are kind of like equivalent to the panels. Right now, if you look at an energy storage system, 60% of your cost is associated to the lithium batteries. Very similar to, before probably was 80% of the cost was solar panels, but solar panel prices came down. Obviously, as an example, the Chinese put a lot of money into manufacturing capacity. We're seeing the exact same thing with specific chemistries. Chinese are putting a lot of money into it. It's creating oversupply and prices are coming down. So I think in the near term, we'll see continued price pressure on the battery side of the business. And then in the next 12, 24 months, we'll start seeing price pressure on the balance of system components. And then maybe in the next, let's say, 3 to 5 years, there's going to be a significant breakthrough on the battery technology side, which is going to dramatically reduce the price of these technologies.
So in reference to the EV market, I guess what type of connections are you noticing?
Yeah, so I think on the application side, so that's a great question. And the way I look at that is two questions or two ways to approach that. The first one is on the application side. So someone who's gone out, a family who's gone out and invested in solar, they're now adding batteries and they're now putting the electric vehicle in the garage. I mean, collectively, our companies here, we can deliver packages that allow homeowners to become energy efficient or energy sufficient, and they can actually take their solar power, park it inside of a lithium battery from Eguana, and then put that into their electric vehicles. So it's the whole ecosystem is now coming into effect, and I think some early adopters are jumping on that. And then on the other side, which we'll discuss a little bit later, is the innovation in the product. So obviously we're seeing a lot of money being put into building out these mega battery facilities to supply the electrification of the transportation space, and that's obviously going to benefit the energy storage system providers like Eguana because prices are coming down.
Do you think, just to piggyback off that, raw material wise, do you think that with there being such a huge push for lithium-ion batteries in different markets, right? EV, storage, all of our phones, like everything. Do you think that the raw material supply can keep up with it? This is obviously a very big question with they could go anywhere, but do you think that there's going to be, I guess, any issues with raw material availability or pricing or anything like that outside of sort of the normal fluctuations you might get in any market?
It's a really great question. And if we look at the NMC supply side, we've seen some of the suppliers in the market actually increase price because there was a shortage of cobalt in 2018, 2019. So we have seen price increase. We've seen the price of lithium carbonate, LCE, coming out of South America as an example. Prices were around $5,000 a ton in 2015, 2016. By 2019, prices shot up to around $20,000 LCE. So there definitely was, and then the Chinese actually started to consolidate the whole business in the industry, and a lot of the facilities started to ramp. So the market itself is obviously adjusting because there are a lot of people that are having this exact same conversation. They're looking to benefit and make sure that the supply chain is in place. Very large companies are not going to build mega facilities without the supply chain in place. So it is happening. I think that now there's so much attention and awareness on everything that's happening that the money is starting to flow into the mining side of it. So I don't see any great challenges, but you're right, though. There's going to be that up and down.
Yeah, that makes sense. I guess kind of shifting in the same sort of financial direction, but a little bit different. Incentives now and in the future. And we actually had a good question from Rex, who's listening in, kind of talking about the carbon fee and dividend proposal in Washington, D.C. and whether or not, I guess, what's the best way to factor in disaster recovery like we were talking about. So situations where someone's doing it as like a true disaster backup option versus true market economics for the pricing and everything being through incentives and sort of cost of product and installation. But I guess what are some of your thoughts or insights on current incentives and where things are maybe looking in the future?
Yeah, the key one is obviously the ITC. Right, the extension of that's definitely going to help us out in the short term. I'm obviously grateful nothing happened to the ITC in California. No doubt that both of our companies have been selling products into the SGIP, was a self-generation incentive program in California that's offering it's a multi-tiered approach, but that has definitely helped to build the industry. So those are the two big ones that we're looking at right now, and then. Obviously, we've seen, the FEMA money in Puerto Rico is going to start to flow through over the next couple of years here. That's going to have a huge impact. And then you mentioned there might be recovery funds in other parts of the United States, which will have a positive impact. But when we also look at Washington and how money is going to flow through, these trillions of dollars that want to go back into infrastructure, it may not be an incentive. But money is going to flow back into the clean energy space, whether that's, someone is going out and deploying a fleet of electric vehicles, and that electric vehicle fleet requires some type of energy storage system to man demand charges. So we as equipment suppliers, we have the SGIP and the ITC, but when you look at the big picture and you throw in, billions of dollars from FEMA and you look at trillions of dollars going into green energy infrastructure and all of this, that's pretty exciting. And then, Nick, the other one that could have a material impact on our businesses is a standalone ITC. If there's an ITC for standalone energy storage systems, if that comes into effect, it's going to drive companies that are obviously delivering AC coupled energy storage systems, and it's going to open up a whole new market where we can take this technology and deploy them in fleets and aggregate them together and create virtual power plants. So I'm really keeping my eye on what's happening with that standalone ITC for energy storage systems. I think that could change the whole ball.
Is it going to be parallel to the solar? So it will be 26%, or you think it will be 30%? Or?
We'll see where they land. It's always obviously hard to predict, but there haven't been any initial forecasts or indication provided. But if we can get that 25% on the standalone side, that would work wonders. Think about how many different applications there are where maybe there's not even solar power there. For example, we've done a number of installations in the Caribbean market in high-end condos in the Caymans and Bermuda and Puerto Rico, where they just take our turnkey AC coupled energy storage system. They install it in a closet and it sits there and just waits for the grid to go down. So there's a number of different applications for that product.
As a very visible member of the technology, Tesla and their very visible presence creates a lot of demand. We've heard demands for their Powerwall solution are back ordered out into 2022 sometime. Do you see that as a benefit to the ESS market in general? How does that affect Eguana?
Yeah, it's a good question. So obviously, every day we're reading about, I think Volkswagen is actually currently sponsoring their ID, their electrification group is sponsoring the Euro Cup right now. So it's just like electrification is all around us, and we cannot deny that. So yes, there's been a lot of money put into the battery supply chain, but a lot of that supply has landed or has been directed towards electric vehicles. We were previously exclusively, not exclusive, but we were working more or less exclusively with an NMC, LG Chem, and LG Chem has, their supply. It is what it is. And we decided in 2020 or even earlier than that to integrate with a lithium iron phosphate battery module coming out of Asia. That LFP battery module is much more available. So although Tesla is doing great things, they're bringing a lot of attention to what companies like us are working on and definitely helping us. There has been shortfalls in the supply chain, and it definitely did impact Eguana, but we have diversified our integration and procurement strategies to ensure that we dual source our lithium battery requirements.
We often get requests for Powerwall alternatives because of the back order, because of the high price tag. Does Eguana have a member of its product line that's specifically targeted to sort of sit side by side and compete with that solution?
Absolutely. I think what comes to mind when I think about Tesla, and everyone always says, how does it impact your business? I would say a rising tide lifts all boats. It definitely is having a very positive impact on what we're working on a day-to-day basis. And yeah, absolutely. If you look at our cut sheet, we have a 5 kilowatt AC coupled energy storage system in a NEMA 3R rated enclosure that's going to be installed outdoors or inside a garage. It's 14 kilowatt hour of capacity. It is different from Tesla in that we offer a lithium iron phosphate chemistry, although we could also do the NMC as well. So we have a direct comparable to Tesla. And absolutely, there are a number of installers all across the United States who are calling us almost every single day asking for supply. We spent a number of years and we brought in some people with extensive networks in the solar power business. So people were kind of like, I'm happy with Tesla right now. Let's see where things go. And then over the past few months, there has been a notable increase in inbound unsolicited phone calls we're receiving. So we're definitely positioned to bring or fill that gap in the market.
You mentioned earlier that California customers will start thinking about energy storage systems as like the grid goes down or anything like that. Do you think, is it safe to assume that the energy storage systems will be a staple in the future for PV systems?
Yeah, absolutely, Jimmy. If we look already at Hawaii, I would say probably the attach rate between solar and storage is probably 80 to 90% of all new installations are going in with battery systems. If we look at Puerto Rico and how heavy they were hit after Hurricane Irma and Maria ripped through, I would say the bulk of the island's solar PV arrays are retrofitted, and probably every new installation that's going in Puerto Rico is now going with batteries. I'm sure we're going to see the exact same thing come out of Texas after what we experienced this winter. we're talking to partners down there every day, and everyone's inquiring about batteries, saying, you know, they want to include batteries going forward. And then if we look at California, I would say, based on the feedback we're receiving from our partners in the market, most of them are reporting about a 40% attach rate right now. So about 40% of all new solar PV systems are going in with a battery storage system. And then, as I mentioned before, the time of use and the SGIP funding and the requirement to have solar PV on all the rooftops. And there's even, I read an article a couple of weeks ago that said there's a proposal put forward in California for all new homes to be battery ready, which essentially means that all new homes would need a protected load panels in place, ready to drop a battery behind it. So I say, to answer your question in short, I would say within 2 to 3 years across the United States, we see a 1-to-1 attach rate between solar PV and battery storage systems.
That's great. And to kind of piggyback off of that, we talked about sort of different use cases, right? We were talking about Texas before we jumped on. We talked about California. I guess do you see any other big reasons that people are adding storage other than backup, other than financial incentives, other than state requirements for like zero export on solar systems, or peak shaving? Or I guess, what do you think the big reasons are that people are adding storage as of right now?
I mean, outside of all those big reasons, which is obviously the net zero export and the backup power and all of this, I would say, I mean, I've always worked from home, but I know a lot of people in my close circle are working from home over the past year. And fundamentally, people are becoming more in tune with how much money they're actually spending and how important is grid resiliency. So there's probably going to be a shift in people's mentality as we kind of shift back to this stay-at-home, not shift, but as long-term trend emerges in the stay-at-home work-from-home environment. So that's definitely having a positive impact, and you guys see it on the solar side. Solar never slowed down through coronavirus. Of course, the supply chains were disrupted, but you know, and in fact, everyone I'm talking to is expecting a record second half of the year. So, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that pretty much the entire population has been stuck at home for the past 12 months.
Yeah, I mean, so what we see when customers are calling us is usage of ESS for time of use, peak shaving, off-grid, and backup. And maybe the question is, will we see more reasons to, besides those usage of ESS to ESS? I mean, do you see anything else besides backup, off-grid, time of use, or peak shaving?
Absolutely. Well, it could be the ITC for the standalone would be nice, but the virtual power plant is definitely going to be a key driver for people to invest in it. We already do that, and we already participate in a number of virtual power plants in Australia where the homeowner is incentivized. Probably generally what happens is they receive a lump sum payment up front to access that battery over a number of years. And in Australia, that's really accounting for 30 to 40% of the capital expenditure outlay on day one. So I would say as that becomes more popular with utilities and aggregators and that whole business model starts to emerge in North America, that's going to play a key role.
Yeah, there will probably be opposition for this type of solutions, just like net metering facing opposition. I wonder how it will work in the US.
It will be interesting, and the other thing will be the US is such a big, geographically it's massive. So you got Vermont. You know, we know that the utility up in Vermont, Green Mountain Power, has had a bring your own battery device program. We see the Smart ACES program starting to emerge in Massachusetts. We know PREPA is working on something. We know there's pilots happening in Los Angeles with a few utilities. So I think let's give it a couple of years and we'll start to see that business case emerge, and it's only going to further incentivize homeowners to invest in energy storage systems by reducing their capital expenditures on day one.
Interesting.
We've seen a marked increase in the demand for capacity, number of kilowatt hours people want to have in their pocket. And can you comment on that trend, where it's going, and maybe some of the drivers behind it?
Yeah, it's a great question. And once again, the US is just such a huge market. So it's always interesting to see it from a perspective. You know, we're not just focused on California. We talk in one day, we can talk to partners from Idaho to Florida, all the way out to Guam and everywhere in between. So we're all over the map when we talk to people. In Hawaii, our average system size is around 20 kilowatt hours, which is ideal for that net export market. In Puerto Rico, because they have less consumption per household, you know, that 14 kilowatt hour mark is perfect. But if we shoot over to Los Angeles, where you have, you know, very heavy incentives through the SCHIP program, you have a wealthier group of people, obviously, especially in markets like Orange County and the ITCs there. Our average installation is like over 40 kilowatt hours, which is, you know, 3 of our battery packs hanging on the wall. So I would say it's a combination of, yes, what is actually required to run that home, which is probably North America, you know, 14 kilowatt hours is the right spot. But having the flexibility with our system to increase that by another 14 and 14, bringing it to 28 and 42 kilowatt hours, allows us to address all those other use cases, whether it's the SCHIP program in California driving higher capacity or some other reason in another market.
I'll jump with a question that Eric is asking here. How does vehicle to house and vehicle to grid bidirectional charge controllers connected with BEVs integrate with house connected stationary storage? Do you see it as a solution that we will really have cars?
Yeah, I spoke with a group out of, I think it was Arizona last week, and they're working on a portable power solution. And their idea is they want to take, you know, one of these battery banks and put it on the back of your F-150 or whatever it is, your RV, and charge it up at home, and you're able to like move this power bank back and forth. And you know, why do you need a stationary storage system on the side of your house? It could be mobile. But I think there's a spot in the world for that for sure. There's no doubt about that, especially if you look at like Texas, right? Well, what Nick was talking about in Texas, there's definitely a spot for that. But as a mass market, I don't see that idea of having mobile power really that intriguing. What I do think is interesting though, is especially when you start having high penetration rates of electric vehicle, is, you know, you start having these cars which are holding 80, 100 kilowatt hours of electricity, and they're moving around the city and they're charging and discharging. So in order for that, and the opportunity there is obviously to discharge that back into the grid when the grid needs it. So could a fleet of electric vehicles present a business case to participate in demand response programs? And I think yes, but you obviously need the mass deployment, and you need the infrastructure in place, which is challenging to push energy from the vehicle back into the grid, and then be able to have the software layer on top of it to recognize it and tie in to the utility and all this stuff. So it's very easy to have that conversation, but when you start looking at it, we're probably 5 to 10 years before we start seeing that as the mass market opportunity.
Yeah.
So you touched on this a little bit recently, but manufacturers are assuming 5 to 6 kilowatts for off-grid and backup. Would you agree with that? Or I guess what size would you require to recommend?
Yeah, probably the question is about the inverter side, what the inverter can push into the house, not the battery.
Yeah, absolutely. So our current product right now is our 5 kilowatt power electronics platform. Our inverter is 5 kilowatts continuous. We have 14 kilowatt hour of lithium iron phosphate battery modules in there. It's AC coupled. It has the energy management controller. It's an NEMA 3R rated enclosure, and we can expand on it, go from 14 to 28 up to 42 kilowatt hours. In my opinion, 5 kilowatts should be enough for the average household if the consumer is told, look, this is really what you need in the event of a grid failure. I mean, if in my house, if the grid goes down, 5 kilowatts would be sufficient enough. And that's what we based our initial product launch on, is that 5 kilowatt spot. But, you know, the incentives are strong. The ITC is in place, and we all know that, you know, the American economy for the most part is roaring right now. So people have disposable income, and people right now are investing back into their properties, and they want more power. And some Americans, they simply don't want to change their lifestyle in the event of a grid failure. So if they're able to afford that and they want it, then who are we, or who is RENVU to say, you know, let's restrict them? No, let's give them what they want. So that's exactly what we're doing at Eguana. We came out with our 5 kilowatt platform, and we announced our Evolve Max product, which is a 10 kilowatt, 28 kilowatt energy storage system. And we're going to go in and have that complete product portfolio, which is 5 kilowatts if you want just the backup panel center and smaller loads against it. Or if you have the funds, or if the incentives are in place, or you just need it, then we can give you the 10 kilowatt, 28 kilowatt hour system. So to answer your question, I think personally 5 kilowatts is enough, but the market wants higher power, so we're going to give it to them. And we got our 10 kilowatt hour or 10 kilowatt AC product coming down the pipeline this in the next couple of months here.
And you mentioned before the German market, which is huge. I wasn't aware that it's so big. And what do people use there? Is it also 5 kilowatt or different?
It's the opposite of the American market, right? So of course, like we know, the Europeans, in my opinion, Europeans are more efficient in terms of how they move around, mobility, their lifestyle, energy consumption. You know, the space that they live in is much smaller. So our product there is, our base product is fixed. It's 3.5. It's 3.5 kilowatts, and then you can stack 2 of the systems in parallel with each other and increase the power output. But our base model is like 3.5 kilowatt AC by 6.5 kilowatt hour capacity. So the European market is relatively smaller in terms of what they need versus the American market, where it's like people are even asking us, are we going to be able to stack our 10 kilowatt AC product together? So it seems there's people want more and more power in the US.
They're using it for the same reasons? I mean, do they have power shutdowns, or?
Our European product only has like a three-prong outlet, and you can just put the power in there, and it discharges kind of similar to like the old SMAs on the island product you're probably familiar with. But no, it's only for solar self-consumption. So the first million rooftops that were either installed or whatnot, those are starting to roll off their feed-in tariff programs right now. Their contracts are expiring 20 years later. So you have the cost, let's say the cost per kilowatt hour is like between 30 to 40 euro cents. And then you're receiving like wholesale rates for exported electricity, which is like 5-6 euro cents. So you imagine having the solar PV array, and before you're receiving a nice premium, and today, after your contract expires, you're only going to get like 5-6 cents per kilowatt hour. So what they want to do is obviously throw an energy storage system there to capture that value and then use it in the evening when you come home. And that basic model delivers like a 5-year return on investment. So there's a lot of huge retrofit opportunity in Germany. And then if you go and sign up for a new solar PV contract today in Germany, they're not giving you that premium to retail rates. They're once again giving you that wholesale rates. So essentially what we're seeing is more or less a 1-to-1 attach rate on all new solar PV systems being installed.
I guess that kind of segues into the question I had about the AC coupling versus DC coupling. And obviously, Eguana system is ideal for retrofitting all of the existing systems that there are in the United States, and that's obviously a huge market. Do you think at some point there's going to be a shift where, and I guess we touched a little bit on it before, but there's a shift where we'll go from having people putting in just straight grid-tied systems and getting to that sort of point where people are going to be putting in systems at the storage systems at the same time as the solar, and whether or not there will be a shift from AC to DC coupling, or whether or not you think it'll still sort of stay relatively equal, where you'll have opportunities for both.
Yeah, I think it's going to stay equal. between AC and DC coupled. And if anything, in the next decade, there's going to be a major push towards like AC coupled. And what would drive that is obviously, once again, going back to like, let's say we have a macro situation where Washington says we're going to give you an ITC on standalone energy storage system. Well, it's hats off to the AC side of the supply chain. So something like that could really impact what we're doing. But my personal belief is, if I'm a solar installer, right, you guys are obviously a strong distribution house, and we go in to talk to an installer anywhere in North America, I would rather sit down at the table, and I feel it's an easier sell to say, hey, look, Mr. Solar Installer in San Francisco, you currently like to use Enphase, SolarEdge, Fronius, ABB, whichever solar inverter you're currently using, you can continue using that. And we're going to give you an energy storage system that's going to simply tack onto that. It's going to support it. It's going to play well into it. I think that's a much easier sale and value prop for the installer than to go into his office and say, look, in order to use our battery storage technology, you need to switch your solar inverters. That is incredibly challenging, as you guys know, to walk into a solar installer's office and try to get them off of their power electronics product of preference. So I think for that reason, it's going to be easier to get AC coupled into the mainstream. Some people are obviously like DC coupled, same solar inverter and same battery system all wrapped into one. So of course there's a market for that. But the other things, of course, as well is the retrofit. When we look at the market, potentially you have a standalone ITC coming down the pipeline, and we have a massive retrofit market in California and right across the United States. In California alone, as we discussed before, there are 1 million rooftops, which in my opinion, over the next decade are probably all going to add batteries to it. So that's a huge opportunity that we can't turn a blind eye to. We have to actually focus and figure out how we can tap into that market and get them AC coupled energy storage systems. And then on the product and application side, a lot of, obviously we talked to a lot of solar installers, and the feedback has been they actually prefer the AC couple. They prefer keeping the solar power there, allowing, keep doing what they're doing, and then putting the AC coupled energy storage system behind the meter, allowing them for maximum system design flexibility, and also the warranty component and the serviceability. So, the system goes down. If the inverter goes down, now the whole system's down. So the AC coupled side of it allows for maximum system availability, and it's also delivers, I guess, less stress for the installer when they're trying to figure out what happened with their product that they installed.
That's probably also a message to installers, that you just need to go back to all your installations in the past and try to offer energy storage. This is a new business model for your new opportunity for installers that, I don't know, working for 6-10 years now, installing systems, and they have their customers that are happy with the original project that they got, and maybe they can push more sales to the same existing customers.
Yeah, that's always a conversation with a lot of our customers, is lead generation and making sure that they have a steady pipeline of projects. And if you go back and all of a sudden you have these 10 or 15 years worth of projects and contacts where you already have a warm introduction, and you're not, just trying to sell something to somebody you haven't ever talked to before. I think it's definitely a much easier sell than otherwise.
Exactly. And that's always the first thing. People are always like, well, Livio or whoever they're talking to at Eguana, well, we have like a good product. It's DC coupled. We like it. Okay, well, that's good. Then how are you servicing your existing customers? Mr. Solar Installer, you've been in business for 30 years. We're dealing with a group right now in Daytona Beach, and a fantastic gentleman there. Our first shipments just went out to him, but he's been in business doing solar and solar thermal and all of this stuff for 30 years. I mean, he has 30 years of sales under his belt, and what's he going to do? Go and like pull permits for all these systems, take all the inverters off the wall, and like, no, you simply can't do that. You need a strong AC coupled energy storage product. And I always say, they're always saying, well, we'll use you for like retrofits. Okay, that's fine. Let's start off there. But then eventually, after a couple of months after they installed their first systems, they had a good experience with our product, they come back and say, oh yeah, we've also put you into some new projects as well. So I think it's going to be like trial and error for these installers to really figure out which way they want to go. And another good point when we talk about AC versus DC couple, we can just point to Tesla. Obviously, Tesla's done very well, and they started off doing DC couple. Then if you look at where they are right now, and more or less they are an energy company, they're really focused on the AC coupled product. And if we think big picture, we think virtual power plants and the ability to, we have cars driving around that are full of electricity and them putting energy back into the grid, and all of these homes with solar power on it. There's so many more applications for energy storage, which can only be addressed by AC coupled energy storage systems. So I think our ability to decouple ourselves from the solar array in the long term is going to be very important.
So speaking of the installed base and even new installations with potential customers still on the sidelines, mulling it over, one of the top considerations they bring is it worth investing in storage now? Can you comment kind of where we are with that, where you see it going in the future? And where do they see the payback, the ROI on such a diving into that segment?
Yeah, it's a great point, and in some markets it's easier to give you direct answers, and then in some other markets we need to focus on the intangible value that energy storage systems deliver. If somebody had an energy storage system in Texas this winter, I mean, they obviously seen tremendous value. And if you talk to that homeowner now, they might say, well, like it kind of paid for itself just over one event, right? And kind of the same story in the Southeast and other markets. In some markets like Hawaii, you simply need energy storage in order to put your solar PV on your rooftop. So it really is a deal breaker whether you're going to go solar and recognize long-term cost savings on your electric bill or not. But if we look at California, and I'll try to give you a much more direct answer. Let's say one of our systems installed to the consumer is around $15,000. We know that the ITC, the investment tax credit at the federal level, is in place, and we also have the self-generation incentive program at the state level. That today, based on where the rebate levels are at, that's going to account for about $7,000. So more or less around 40 to 50% of your CapEx is knocked out once you receive those incentives. And the other thing we can do with our product is, of course, we deliver backup power, which is important, but we also have the ability to store electricity and discharge it based on the time of use rate structure that's in place. It's very complicated. We can have a whole other conversation on it, but for the purpose of this conversation, let's say the spread between on-peak and off-peak is 25 cents per kilowatt hour. We take that 25 cents per kilowatt hour and we assume there's enough solar power to top up the battery every day, which there should be, especially in California. You're looking at about $1,000 per year in cost savings. So we have $15,000 upfront cost. You got $7,000 back from the ITC and the SGIP program if you wish to participate. And then you got about $1,000 a year in cost savings. So that, doing very simple math, is obviously going to give us a 7-year payback in California, attributing zero value to backup power.
Okay, let's jump a little bit to talk about technology and start with chemistry. And I can't think about a better player to ask about what is better, NMC or LFP, because every time we're talking with a manufacturer that sells LFP, they will obviously say that LFP is the best because it's safer or whatnot. And then when you're talking with NMC manufacturer, you hear about the C rating or the reasons why high voltage is better than lower. What is your opinion, since you're selling both? What do you think is better?
It's a very sensitive question. We always have to be careful, or else my cell phone's going to blow up as soon as I finish this call. But no, so I mean, I always have my own opinion, and I think that's irrelevant. It's more about what is the market. What does the market want? And let's break it down between our companies. You're a distributor, we're a technology company. We have to work together to get our product into the market. Supply and availability is a big one. Right now, we see with pretty much all Japanese and Korean NMC suppliers, that product is not readily available. Lead times are long and that type of stuff. LFP, there's overcapacity in the market. The Chinese are looking to move product. So we're able to supply product into a market that needs product right now. So from the supply perspective, I think the LFP is a win. But on the other side, the NMC side, the form factor energy density of the NMC is much more attractive. You can get 20, 30% more in an NMC battery than the LFP product. Our LFP product has more weight and the dimensions are a little bit more than the NMC because of the footprint and the form factor and how much energy you get into the NMC versus the LFP. So that's definitely an advantage when you look at aesthetics and the overall customer experience. But, you know, then I could swing back and forth all day. You know, there's this whole article that the Wall Street Journal published, or one of the major publishing houses in the US put out a couple of years ago talking about cobalt and conflict minerals and all this stuff. So if we look at a place like Ojai, California, which is like a very environmentally responsible neighborhood, we get questions all the time. We work with a company there and they simply love the LFP because it contains no cobalt, and cobalt, based on what the media is telling us, is leading to conflict minerals in certain parts of the world. So it could be like a constant back and forth. And what we wanted to do was not make that decision, just like what's better, AC coupled or DC coupled. We just want to give flexibility to the market. So what we did as an organization, we recognized that, and we went out and integrated with LG Chem, one of the largest, if not the largest, lithium battery manufacturers in the world. And we have a world-class product that we're delivering right now. And then on top of that, if someone's looking for the lithium iron phosphate because they're looking for, I don't know, more cycle lives or whatever the case may be, we offer that as well. So we're the only company in North America today that is delivering in commercial volumes, both an LFP solution and an NMC solution.
Are you aware of any new chemistries coming out?
Yes, we recently had an announcement out. I think it was probably in the past 4 weeks or so. What we announced was a relationship with a Scandinavian battery manufacturing technology company called FREYR. FREYR is one of the companies that acquired a license from a company in Massachusetts called 24M. 24M, I believe, is an MIT spinoff that is working on a next generation semi-solid state lithium technology. And then they're taking that and licensing them out to different players in the market. The company that we partner up with is called FREYR. FREYR is intends to deliver product into the European Union, Volkswagen, and other major automotive companies. And we're pretty excited about that. The key thing there with that semi-solid state lithium battery technology is you look at the same form factor, and going back to the previous point I just made, the form factor, in the same form factor as NMC, they're going to be able to put double as much energy into that cell. And on top of that, that's obviously going to lead to lower cost. So we're definitely focused on the technology, and we're going to receive our first batch of semi-solid state cells in early 2020, so next year, 2022. And then we plan to commercialize and bring to market and push through RENVU, our Evolve energy storage system, which has semi-solid state lithium batteries integrated into it.
Is the market or customers still looking for indoors installation or outdoors? What are the reasons to choose one of those? I mean,
yeah, good question. Our product is NEMA 3R rated. All of our products will in North America, all of our products will continue to be NEMA 3R. Our vision is to have this battery box, like a utility box, just sitting on the side of a home, easy to install and just self-sufficient for the next 20 years. So we want to take that out of the household. I can only imagine there's like some anxiety about, we see what happens to lithium batteries, even though it's not our lithium batteries, but we see what happens to electric vehicles and stuff like this. It goes viral on social media when a Tesla catches on fire or whatever the case is. So people probably have anxiety about that. Let's take that out of the household. Let's take that out of the primary residence. Let's put that on the exterior of the home and relieve people of any anxiety that they have. And then the other thing that we need to look at there is what's happening with the National Electric Code. In 2022, there's going to be a rollover that mandates all energy storage systems be installed on the exterior of the home. So that is going to, so it's not so much even about what people want, it's going to be what does the code want. And the code is going to call for batteries to be installed on the exterior of the home in 2022.
Sounds good.
To kind of talk, I guess, more about the warranty period, we've been seeing the life cycle of a battery and the total number of cycles just sort of going up over the course of the past few years. Is it just a technology improvement, or do you think it's more manufacturers are getting sort of better experience with how the product's being used and can sort of increase the warranty period based off what actual real world use cases of what's happening with the batteries?
I don't think, in my opinion, I don't think there's been any major breakthroughs in the past couple of years that would lead a battery technology company to expand on their warranty. If you look at it, whether it's on a throughput basis, on a number of years, or on cycle life, everything today is more or less landing at 10-year mark. And I think the industry is going to stay there until there's a breakthrough. That could be the semi-solid state technology we're talking about that might lead to a 20-year warranty period. But right now, based on what's available in the market, it's 10 years. If we see manufacturers coming out and doing 15 to 20 years, then there's ways around that. They could factor in, okay, what is going to be the cost to replace a lithium battery in 10 years from now? Let's tack that cost on right now, or let's offer an extended warranty, or they're doing some type of marketing play. But fundamentally, based on the technology and what we know, a 10-year warranty is where we'll probably stay until there's some type of significant breakthrough.
For customers looking for their ESS solution, comparing technology vendors against each other, what parameters should they analyze? What should they compare side by side just to see which one solves their issue the best? It's not just about kilowatt hours. What other features or parameters should they be considering?
Yeah, absolutely. So if I were a consumer, I think there's a lot of good products in the market. How long the company's been there, who is the company, their ability to service. The ability to service their equipment is very important because it is essentially a lifetime asset, and it's also a high ticket dollar value. It's a high ticket item that they're purchasing. So who are they buying it from? That would be a big thing for me. I mean, the solar installer I'm purchasing it from, have they been here for a long period of time? I'd be more inclined to look into their business. And then on the technology side, yeah, for sure. I mean, the functionality, is this a future-proof product? Does it have all the functionality built into it? So, for example, right now in Florida, you don't have a time of use rate structure, but you're buying a technology which plays into it, or it should play into it. So it doesn't have the capabilities so that when the time of use rate structure comes into effect in Florida, will I be able to update my system or do something so that I can buy and sell electricity based on the rate structure? So the software is important. What are you buying with the software? The warranty, what are you getting with the warranty? And then obviously vetting your solar installer. And the biggest thing that I see talking to solar installers is they're only focused on the capital cost. So our products, let's say to an installer, will cost $10,000, just to throw a number out there. There's another solution that may be similar to us that's $10,000 as well. The Eguana is selling 14 kilowatt hour of capacity. And then the competitor is selling 10 kilowatt hours for the exact same dollar figure. So look at what you're actually buying, right? Are you getting more power? Are you getting more capacity for the same dollar figure? Do not let the dollar figures drive your decision-making process. Actually look at how much energy storage battery capacity you have, how much is your continuous power, and then obviously look at the software as well and the warranty.
Would that, I was going to just a quick little follow-up ask, would that want to be broken down into, say, dollars per kilowatt, dollars per kilowatt hour in order to make a judgment in that way?
It's, I mean, dollars per kilowatt hour is definitely one approach, right? But it's also could be like misleading. And I'll just be entirely honest right now. If you say, like, let's take our Evolve. Right now we have our Evolve product. If you take just the 14 kilowatt hour, you're probably around $700 to $800 per kilowatt hour. If you add the second battery extension cabinet, we quickly go down to $400 to $500 per kilowatt hour. So, you know, the price goes down as we add more capacity. That makes perfect sense. But our Evolve Max product is going to have a higher dollar per kilowatt hour, or in line with it, but probably a little bit higher than the base model, than the 5 kilowatt. But what you're getting there is a 10 kilowatt AC inverter versus the 5 kilowatt. So although price per kilowatt hour is important, you have to look at like everything you're getting within the system. So you really got to break it down.
Do you think installers and end users, the homeowners, are getting this put in? Do you think the knowledge of how to size the system and what's going to be covering and what loads are going to be covered in the home, what a homeowner actually needs versus what they want, and vice versa? Do you think that people are becoming more knowledgeable about that and they're understanding to look at those specific things? Do you think the learning curve is starting to sort of be a little less steep, or do you think it will lessen over the next few years?
I wish at this point in the game I could be a little more confident in my response to you, Nick, but I'll say it as it is. There are, and there's different facets to it, of course. On one side, we partner up with an Australian company called Open Solar. We're in the energy tool-based platform as well. So we've done a good job making sure that we're integrated with all of these system sizing and proposal tools out there. We'll help installers size systems. We have our webinars and our training and our tech support and everything ready to go to support them. So there's no shortfalling on the Eguana side, in my opinion. We have a very robust training and partner network out there. But on the other side, I mean, I talk to solar installers pretty frequently and some of their sales teams, and it's a little bit disappointing to see that they can't comprehend or understand the difference between a kilowatt and kilowatt hour. So I would imagine it is definitely getting better. You know, I don't want to be negative. It is getting better compared to where we were 5 years ago, but we still have a lot of room for growth, especially when we look at managing the customer's expectations. Another reason why we're launching this 10 kilowatt AC coupled energy storage system is for that exact reason. So once again, we want to look at mainstream mass markets, and you know what happens. You sell a system, someone out there is overpromised, they put too many loads against it, the grid goes down, system trips type of thing, right? It happens. And if we go out there and we say, look, if you're not entirely confident in what you're selling and stuff like that, then just get the larger product on the wall and you're not going to miss. So we're trying to fill out our product line to help solar installers sell more products and make sure they're managing the customer's expectations.
Maybe related to this, Eric is asking here, for lower temperatures, I mean, he's installing outside the batteries. If lower temperatures of the Northeast will affect the discharge and capacity of battery storage installation?
It absolutely is. And I think that's going to be a challenge for the overall energy storage market. We have a couple of installers we work with in Alberta, a few in British Columbia, even here in Ontario, and obviously New England. We do some installation work as well. In the southern, in the hot climate weather markets, whether it's California, Texas, Florida, wherever, the Carolinas, we're okay. The temperature in Celsius goes up to like +40, +50. So it's not so much the upside that we're concerned about, it's the downside. And most lithium batteries are going down to about -10 degrees. So at -10, here in Toronto, where I'm based, I mean, we're easily see -10 in February. Some years it goes down to -30. So what happens with the battery technology is that it doesn't impact it. It doesn't impact the warranty of this. It just shuts itself down. So you would have to think for like the months of like probably February and March in New England, you would just lose access to your batteries, which is less than ideal. So one short-term opportunity is obviously to put the batteries in the basement or in a heated garage or some type of climate-controlled atmosphere or environment. But then on the other hand, if we look at the National Electric Code and where that's going, and that's mandating all batteries to be installed outdoors, essentially what's going to happen is companies like Eguana and everybody sitting on the technology and integration side of the business are going to need to come up with innovative ways to deliver a product which can handle an outdoor rate, or they need us to deliver an outdoor rated energy storage system down to, let's say, -20 degrees for the northern climates. There's going to be a shift, and there's got to be some product innovation.
So in terms of costs, do you see a change over the next this next year? If so, like, I guess what would be a cause of that?
On the cost side, Jimmy?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Eguana specifically, I think, well, we're already the price leader on the LFP side, so I don't see the need for us to reduce our price. We do have the Evolve Max product coming out, which is going to be lower cost. It's higher power. It's going to be lower cost than putting two systems together. So that there's definitely some cost savings there. But looking forward, I would say the most significant price reduction is from Eguana is going to be when we launch our semi-solid state lithium energy storage system at some point next year. That's going to be the biggest cost reduction effort, I would say. Yeah.
So do you see a demand in the next 6 months for energy storage systems?
And this year right now, well, I think everybody on this call knows that there's pent-up demand. And one of the key things is making sure our product is available and that everyone knows about the product and everyone feels comfortable and they've gone through the training. Everyone we're talking to in the market is expecting for a home run, record-breaking Q3 and Q4 2021. So I think there's a tremendous amount of demand for our products, which is going to benefit both of our business.
Okay, a bit of a loaded question here. Looking for the elevator pitch for Eguana. What are some of the advantages? Why should someone pick Eguana over the other competitors? And how do you stand out from those?
Okay, thank you for that question, Dean. Appreciate it. And unfortunately, I'm not going to give you an elevator pitch. I'm going to break it down. So. Okay. Bear with me for a couple of minutes. Obviously want to make sure the audience understands exactly what we're doing and make sure they get us as many purchase orders as possible after this Zoom call. So on the product side, what exactly are we delivering? We're delivering a fully integrated energy storage system that's factory built and assembled and tested. It has the power electronics in there, which is 5 kilowatts. It has the DC. It has our own energy management controller, the balanced battery management. Everything that you absolutely need is wrapped into this NEMA 3R rated enclosure. So Eguana is delivering a fully integrated energy storage system, which makes it incredibly easy for companies to get into the business. That immediately separates us from the companies that you got to go buy the inverter and you got to buy the batteries and the transfer switch and like all this other nonsense. Forget all of that. Just buy an Eguana Evolve. Everything is integrated, ready to go. On the software side, you can do time of use, wherever you are in North America, we can play well into your time of use rate structure. We can do solar self-consumption, and we definitely do backup power. And we also have the capability to aggregate these systems together. So whatever you want to do with an energy storage system, it's already built in. Whether you're thinking about time of use today or not, if that ever comes around in your local market, you're future, what I call future-proof. So buy the future-proof energy storage system from Eguana. Makes perfect sense. AC coupled, that's been, obviously, we mentioned that a couple of times so far on this call. New or existing PV arrays. You don't need to go out and say, look, life's already complicated as is, and everyone's out there trying to manage their solar business. You want to go out and buy a DC coupled system and an AC coupled system, just streamline it. Just go with Eguana. We're cost competitive. We're everything you need, and we're AC coupled. So you can take that same product and offer it to someone who already has solar power, or someone who has or is installing solar power. If one of your salespeople is really committed and just killing it with a certain solar inverter brand, why try to get him to change his preference in selling? Just let him keep doing what he's doing, and then our system is going to tack onto it. So maximum system design flexibility is another reason you want to choose Eguana. Expandability. We got the 5 kilowatt inverter, 14 kilowatt hour of LFP capacity. We step that up to 28, and then we move again up to 42. So we expand on it. That's very nice. If your customer needs just short duration, then we can do that. We got some customers. We just did an installation not long ago in Southern California and a few others in Georgia and Alabama, where they just wanted, they were okay with 5 kilowatts against a protected load center, but they wanted long duration, multiple day duration on the capacity side. So we were able to deliver that system flexibility. NEMA 3R, of course, it's installed outdoors. That's going to be increasingly important. Also from a service perspective, the battery is installed outdoors. If something ever goes wrong, you need to get to it. It's on the exterior of the home. It makes it easy to service and access. And then, as I said before, we're the only partner in the market, supplier in the market, which is delivering the fully integrated energy storage system with both the LFP and the NMC. So if you want to go with the big mega brands like LG Chem, great, we got that product. It's available through RENVU. Let's get it to the installer. If you want the more cycle lives and environmentally friendly LFP product, great, we got that too. No one else in the market is offering as much product options as Eguana right now. On the cost side, we are the lowest cost LFP provider in the market. There's no other company in North America today that is delivering fully integrated energy storage systems at our price point. There's no gimmicks, there's no marketing talk here. We simply deliver the lowest cost LFP battery product in the market. And with some of the other mega brands in the market currently not delivering, we're actually the lowest cost solution in the market. So we don't see any challenges on the price side. And then I'm also obviously going to say availability and supply. I mean, you guys are a distribution company. Understand how critical it is to be able to respond to your customers' needs, carry the right product, and respond. We're both going to win in the second half of this year because we can deliver product and we have access to channels. So partnering up with a company like Eguana that has product available right now with very short lead times is incredibly important. A lot of solar companies out there have been burned by going with some much larger players who have not been able to deliver for years on end. Just go with the company that has product, is working with major distribution channels such as RENVU, and let's go with it. And the last thing I'll say is we got a nice product today, but by partnering with Eguana Technologies, you have access, our installers have access to our future products. What do our future products include? The Evolve Max, which is a 10 kilowatt AC, 28 kilowatt hour product. Next year, we're also going to launch the semi-solid state lithium battery technology system. And then we're also going to launch the 3-phase backup power product for the commercial market. So it's a very exciting time to be partnering with Eguana. And I'm sure that answers your question, Dean.
And you mentioned the market that is going to boom in the next 2 quarters and then in 2022. And what are your plans to expand production? Do you have any plans to double or more? I don't know.
Yeah, we've seen obviously what's going to happen this year and the way the market's moving and our demand and all of our partnerships and everything. So earlier this year, we went out to the capital markets and we raised a substantial amount of capital. Obviously, everybody's seen their stock price lifted up earlier this year. So we definitely benefited from that. We have plenty of cash in the bank. And earlier this year, in Q1, we spent a lot of money. We put a lot of money into our supply chain. Obviously, coming out of coronavirus, as you guys know, a lot of the supply chains out there have been disrupted, from microchips to port delays. Port delays are taking weeks, if not months, and trying to get trucks and everything is a real challenge these days. So we raised a lot of money. We put it into the supply chain. We have an incredible amount of lithium batteries available in our possession in Southern California and at our facility in Calgary. So we're in a very strong position to deliver, and that was a big component of it. And then the second component was, as you just said, our ability to assemble and test and deliver these systems. We believe that we have the right distribution partners in place, such as the one that we have. So we have the right channels in place. We have over 200 dealers in place. We have recently added a considerable number of new bodies on both the sales and the technical training and support side of it. And then on the actual assembly side, we had an announcement out announcing the kickoff of a relationship with a company in Carson called Nortel. Nortel is a very large contract manufacturer. They are currently building products for us every single day that we're delivering out. And then also in Calgary, Alberta, where our company is based out of, we just signed a lease on a new facility to expand our in-house testing and assembly capabilities. So on one hand, we have a contract manufacturer sitting in Long Beach, California, which increases our presence on the West Coast and allows us to respond to market conditions. And then we also maintain our in-house manufacturing capacity.
That's great. So kind of to piggyback off that and maybe close loop it. So fantastic pricing, good product availability. We talked about sort of the understanding that installers have of the products and how to work with them best. What sort of, I guess, training or services or the ability to understand your product, get it sized correctly and installed properly, do you guys offer?
Yeah, good question. I spent a lot of time developing the program and that side of the business. The way I've broken it down is really into three components. You have the first component, the first interaction, and this really is the customer flow. The first side of it is, okay, I'm interested in Eguana. Maybe a listener on this call right now, I'm interested in Eguana. What do I do next? What are the next steps? Well, great. Let's get in touch with the sales team. Let's get you our library of technical information. You can go through all the content, single line diagrams, videos, installation footage, pictures, everything that you really need to get a good handle on what you're looking at. So great. So someone goes out, the sales teams are engaged. We're selling the sales team. We got great marketing, digital assets, all kinds of stuff. Happy to share our library of material with any of your listeners. And so we're able to do that pre-sales configuration, both on the technical and sales side of it, pretty well. That's buttoned down. So someone needs information, we got it. We can get you the technical documentations. We do monthly webinars. We have trained webinar sessions. We do in-field training. We do in-class training, everything you can think of to get the customer excited about our product and make sure they feel comfortable with it. The next step is the commissioning side of it. So right now we have some bandwidth. Obviously, the United States is a big country, but in places like Northern and Southern California, based on scheduling and all this stuff, we generally have somebody on site for the first installation. And that usually leads to a positive customer experience. We also do remote training. We always have somebody available on the technical side. If you're installing a system, for example, we have 2 units that are being installed in Daytona Beach early next week, and one of our technicians is registered the call, an appointment, and he's on standby to remotely support that installer. So we're able to support them, and then if anything happens with the system afterwards, whether, it's unlikely, but let's say there's something, the system blows, or like an inverter blows, or I don't know, a battery needs something or another. We have an after sales support team in Calgary, and those individuals are solely responsible for managing after installation support. So we've broken it down into those 3 segments, and we have each one covered off pretty well. Another thing, Nick, that we haven't announced yet, and we're going to announce in the next, probably in the next few weeks here, is an Eguana in select markets, and we're going to do a pilot project in Southern California. And this is our vision. Our vision is we have a solar installer. He loves selling energy storage systems. He's not strong technically. He finds batteries a little bit challenging. So what we're going to do is we're going to say for an added premium of about $500, we're going to, and let's say you sell 10 of them, you sell 1 of them, it doesn't matter. For an extra, $500 per system, you hang up all the hardware, make sure the ACs run in, the protected load center is there. We're going to schedule an Eguana, one of our own employees, an Eguana technician on site, based on everyone's availability. We're going to have somebody on site, and they're going to commission the system, make sure, give it the final blessing and go through the checklist and all of this stuff, and make sure that they walk away. Because we're finding that there are a number of partners out there who are not technically the strongest, and they do need an additional layer of hand-holding. And we're responding to that. We want our customers to be successful so that they continue to buy product from RENVU and that everyone is happy with it. So we're going to be launching this Eguana white, we haven't come up with a name with it yet, but it's like a white glove service commissioning program. And we expect to have that in place in Southern California over the next 4 weeks or so.
Very cool. Very cool. I think we can, because we've run a little long, but I think this has been a fantastic conversation that we've had, and I think we've learned a lot about energy storage market and Eguana's product and how it fits in and sort of what the outlook looks like. So I want to thank both of you for coming and talking with us and having a great conversation.
Yeah, well, once again, it was a pleasure. Obviously, thank you for hosting us and giving us the opportunity to speak. And of course, we can't drop off the call without saying, if there's any listeners out there who want to buy an energy storage system, make sure you get your order to RENVU ASAP.
That's excellent. We appreciate it. And there were a lot of other great questions that I don't think we had time to get to, but we will be able to take a look at those afterwards. So if anybody had a question they didn't get an answer to, don't worry, we'll reach out to you. But yeah, we appreciate it. And thanks everybody for coming, and we'll talk to everybody again soon.